Hi, welcome back to the channel. This is a second video on the RX7 build, and we're going to start where I always like to start with building my models, with my cars anyway, and that is with the Bodybuild. I like to do that because it gives me a chance to at least get everything prepped and ready and get the first step in, because it seems like the bodies, there's always something else you have to do to them. They always need glass put in, they always need details put on, they always need paint work, so they're always a multi-step process in their own right. So I always like to start there. So let's get started on this one. We are going to start with getting the headlights cut out and getting the pop-up ones put in. And to do that, I'm going to use a few different tools today. First, I'm going to use my scalpel blade. Then I'm going to use my trusty knife, my trusty file set. I love these. I recommend these to anybody who builds models. They are just amazing at almost everything. And then, the old Dremel tool, which actually needs a change of bits in it. Okay. And to start, then before we start, we're going to start where I always like to start with all of my body work, and that's making sure that the body's nice and smooth and everything's ready to go on it. Now on this, because it's Aoshima, it is just beautifully molded, just beautiful. And there's some lines right there, mold lines there, and then you can't see it, but the fenders are a tiny bit rough on the edges. So what I like to do is I always like to sand them down with some sanding sponges. In this case, I use these Norton Soft Touch because they're actual body tools. I get them at my local shop. This is a 600/500 grit. You can, if you want, use these micro mesh ones, what a lot of guys use. So just come in and real lightly work this down. You don't need to do too much. Okay. This is why I like them. Okay, so that's a little bit heavy, but I think we could take that out when we move down. So next step down on these for grid size is 1200, 1500. That's what I always like to finish off on. And the great thing about these sanding sponges is they'll contour over just about anything if you're easy with them, but if you get a little forceful with them, they will cut into the plastic pretty well. So yeah, that's taking that right out. And then just kind of real gently scuff the whole thing. And that's where I always finish off, 1200, 1500, somewhere around there. I don't really think you need to do much more than that. I know there's a lot of guys that claim you have to go down to like 250 million thousand grit sandpaper to make it 100% perfect. Honestly, you don't. I mean, in the real world, Mercedes-Benz says they only want you to do 800 grit on their metallic paints and 600 on their solids. So if you're doing 1200, you're doing really well. Now, I will not argue that the finer the sand grit, the better the finish you're going to get, because that's just the way sand pads work. They leave scratches, and the finer those scratches, the less you're going to be able to see them. So it does make sense that you can really get going with the sandpapers and really get up there in the super high grits and get them working perfectly, but I've never seen a reason to do so. Basically, all you're doing is making sure everything's smooth, that everything's leveled off, and you're kind of just knocking that shine off the plastic. That's really all you want to do, is just kind of scuff it. You're not trying to sand it, you're not trying to reshape it. It's not a custom car. It's okay. There's a line in the hood right there. See how that came out? There's a tiny bit left right there. Yep, that's out. Okay. Okay, so that line's out of those fenders. Whatever that thing on the hood was is gone. Top looks good, sides look good. Make sure not to hit anything that sticks out, like these or door handles or whatever. And you don't have to scuff every single square millimeter of it. You can keep it simple. Okay, so now we'll get going on the headlights here. Okay, so for the headlights, they give us the outer shell and they give us where the light mounts. So we'll start out. Snip off the shells. Pretty simple, just those. Takes quick work with them. Then we'll hit this. I use the flat file, square one, the rounded edges. They make two of these. One's flat on this side, well, on both sides, and then flat here. I like the one with the rounded edge a little bit more. And then you're just going to come in. And really carefully just knock that little nub off. That will line up a little bit. And I always like to sand it all down a little bit. Just again, knock that gloss off of it. And yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. So now we'll attack the headlights, and there's a lot of different ways of doing these. That's all pretty thin, so I think I'm just going to do it the old Okay, so that's not really working very well, so we'll just do it the old Dremel way. And I know everybody heard that catch, and no, it didn't mess up the body. Actually, it pulled it right up to the line where it needs to be. Okay, that's all you really want to do, is just get that real close. Now I like to come in and do this. That makes it easier for me to see where that edge is. Okay. Okay, and then that just leaves us with those little edges there. And again, turn to the files, the round one. Okay. Now kind of come back in and clean up the back of this. And that should. And does. Pops right in. That's how it's done. Okay, so we're going to get started on doing the bumper, which is a whole step in its own right. So there's a lot going on here. And if you're a fan of Initial D, you'll know why they have these driving lights on the front of this car. So let's get started on that. We'll get the front bumper and the mirror on, and then we're going to skip over to step 12 and get the spoiler on. And that'll pretty much get the body set up for paint. So I'm not going to do anything with the driving lights yet until we get done. Until we get done with the painting the car, because they're just black. They just kind of hide in the grill opening most of the time in the show. They're really only showing when they're turned on at night. Again, just like everything, take them off with the sprue cutters. I like to cut them as close as I can. I know some guys cut them way off and then come back in and try to really detail pull them out. I don't particularly care for that. Like always. Can't even tell that was there. That one doesn't really work for that. Now, the great thing about this set is they have all sorts of file profiles. This one's really oval. Works great for these really wider inside turns. Again, you want to sand everything, make sure it's smooth. You don't need a lot of pressure, so when you get fragile parts like this, basically if you just kind of brace them behind your finger, they'll be fine. Oh yeah. There's some ejector pin marks we're going to have to get rid of. And right there is a difference between good cars on the table and bad cars on the table. Go to that and it'll blend back in real nicely. Okay. So that just glues right onto the bottom here. And as always, test fit everything. See how it works. You can see how cleaning up those injector marks really make that look a lot better. Let's take that, kind of follow the body line with it. Yeah, you don't want to just hit that flat and just go across it, because that'll ruin it. I found on curved surfaces with the flat ones, a little 45-degree angle makes them work really well. And right here is where I was saying that this has the rounded edge. That's what I like on these. So you can get that little detail work done there without dropping it. We'll just finish up this side and we'll be done. Make sure that transitions over the top nicely. And then again, with everything, we're gonna hit it with the 1500 grit sandpaper here. Okay, and then I'll finish up the other mirror and we'll get this all glued together. Okay, so I got the headlights cut out on both sides. And this is a trick I want to show everybody. I don't think a lot of people cover this in a lot of build videos, but you really got to test fit everything. So in this case, you put the bumper on, you put the headlights in, they go in fine. But if you try to paint these separately, which you're going to have to, when you try to fit that inside of there, you'd end up making a huge mess with the glue. So this is going to have to be built with those being painted separate from these, and then the bumper going on the body and all the body work that needs to be done with that, and just have the empty headlight spots. Because if you look at it, the surrounds are flat black, and then the pop-ups are obviously body color. So you do need to paint those individually. And like I said, you can't do that and put it together after the bumper's on the car. So, so I'll turn to the rest of the body stuff, the bumper and the wing and all that, and get all that prepped. Because all we want to do is get the body where we're ready to put it in paint. And then we'll come back to that and we'll show how I do paint work. Okay, so here we are. We got the car completely sanded. We got all the parts put on it. We got the spoiler finished up, which is really cool looking. And we are ready for paint. So the next step will be putting the yellow base coat on there. House of Colors Chrome Yellow. Base coat clear coat. So you're going to see me shoot the color, and we're going to shoot a clear coat on top of it. I'm going to use 2K on this one, and that'll be the next video. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.